There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
What? Good morning.
Morning.
Read from Happy Life this morning before we start our presentation. Never repay a wrong with revenge. Bad people are sick but do not know it. Give them medicine that will lessen their confusion and resist the eye of an eye approach. If others offend you, that is their problem. But if you offend others, the situation reverses and the problem becomes yours. The offender is always worse. Be mindful of this and go your way in peace. So let's think about those words, go our way in peace. We start our meeting today. I'd like to say a little prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together. Help us absorb these words and take them to our homes and use them in our everyday lives. We appreciate all you do, and bless us, and let's start the meeting. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Oh, yeah, turn off the music. Good morning, everyone. That was a beautiful message, Tom, as always. Jana de Angelis, well, I'm going to talk about her too, so it's like the message always goes with whatever. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So that's a great thing, like not, when someone gives us a present, right? And if you don't want that, what do I do? Or what do we do? Right? Say, no, thank you. Give it back to the person. So I think that was the message about, right? If someone's offend us or for some reason doesn't agree with us, we don't need to take that, right? Personal. So that's a big thing, and I think it's a big challenge for all of us, right? Not take things personally, because everybody has their own agendas. We all have our own agendas. We all have our challenges. We all have things like inside ourselves that we have to work with and work on. And many times it's not, with the other person, but we tend to put in others. So that's a lesson of being merciful and indulgent towards others. And what I'm going to talk about, that's right, the connection with our true self. What does that mean? That's why I linked to the message from what Tom read from Happy Life, because the connection, you guys probably already heard about true self, right? What is to be our true self? What does that mean? First of all, who are we, or what are we? Are we this, am I Edmara? Is this who am I? No. No. That's, let's see, the character that I'm playing right now in this life. But that's not who I am. That's just a part. Like all the other lives that I had before, combined, that's made this personality right now, and plus whatever I have since I was born with me. My family, my values, where I'm from Brazil, so all this cultural background, and I was born in Brazil for some reason. There is no mistake on that. I was born in this family, there is no mistake on that either. There are mistakes that I've been making through my life, and that's normal, because that's how we learn. But this that makes our personality right now, and that's what we call ego. You guys probably heard about the word ego. What does that mean, ego? That starts from Freud, right? Freud starts studying this, and I guess came up with this name, ego. So ego means our personality in this reincarnation right now. And as Freud says, and other psychologists, and Jung also said, that's Freud's follower, right? That we develop our ego as babies, because that's how we interact with the world, and then how we interact with our mother. That's the first person, right, that we interact with. It's our parents and our mother, of course, because we're carrying in her womb, right? We came from our mothers. It can be a mother that is not with us, and that's okay, if we're given to adoption. But it still was our mother. So we developed our ego, a way to deal with this lifetime. So the ego, it's who we are in this lifetime, in this personality. My case is Edmara. But our true self is our spirit. That's what we have inside. And there is a kind of a fight between those two, and that's our life challenge. So there is always like this, our ego and our true self. Why? Because our true self is a connection with God. Our true self is God's creation. And we do have the divinity inside ourselves because it comes from God. In our ego, it's whatever we have that, we build in our other lives and comes now. And that helps us to deal with our challenges. And many times our ego thinks that it's protecting us, helping us, and it's the opposite. Because many times prevent us to go through challenges or situations or things that we have to deal with, especially our emotions that are uncomfortable, our life challenges, and things that we have to deal with to grow as a spirit. So many times our ego is on our way and prevent our growth. How are we aware of that? We have to know ourselves, and we have to understand when is our ego and when is our true self playing. So that's what we call to acquire consciousness. And that's what Joanna D'Angeli says. I'm going to quote her on this book again because I love it. That's great books, very simple, very small book, but lots of, it's very rich. And here, so in this chapter that she talks about acquiring consciousness, and she starts quoting a question from the Spiritist book. That's question 630. So I'm going to read to you so we can understand what she means with that. So how can we distinguish between good and evil? That was Kardec asking the spirits. So the spirits answers. God is everything that is in harmony with God's law. Whereas evil is everything that deviates from it. Thus, doing what is good conforms to God's law, while doing evil infringes on it. So these questions on the Spirit's book, that's the last part when it talks about God's law. So what does it mean, God's law? So those are the laws of the universe, the laws that never change. For example, law of love, law of charity and justice, law of work. So everything is there on the third part of the Spirit's book. So it's from question 600 something until like 1,000 something. So Kardec explains with the spirits, not Kardec, with the spirits, right? With the help of Kardec, explains everything about God's law. So when we suffer, that's a red flag saying, you're going against God's law, or you're going against your true self. So every time when you feel discomfort, sadness, preoccupation, anxiety, that's a big thing nowadays, depression, all that feelings that we have every day or emotions that we have every day, I'm sure, we're going against God's law. So how can we, going through those challenges, how can we overcome that? First of all, we have to acknowledge that we're feeling that way. So we have to stop our craziness every day and say, why am I feeling that? What does that feeling is telling me? What I'm doing that is going against God's law. And many times it's just a lack of love towards ourselves. If we stop and think, many times that's what happens. We are not being merciful, like the message, right? We're not being forgetful against others, towards others, or even towards ourselves. So again, if we think what Jesus says, right? Love God above everything and others as you love yourselves. So that's the main rule. If you think like we are having those feelings, at some point we either are not loving God or not loving others or not loving ourselves. If you make the connection, it's always about that. It's easy. No, Jesus never said that it would be easy. But is our choice? Yes. We chose to be here. We chose our experiences. And many times we choose the hardest path, unfortunately. Or the wide door, right? Because it's easy. Yes, it's easy now, but how about tomorrow? Right? So many times we choose not to deal with our emotions, not to deal with our challenges, because it's easy now. So we numb, right? There is a term that we say numb our conscience because we don't want to think about. So for example, what do we use to numb our conscience? Alcohol, drugs, TV, sleep, food, entertainment. We want to always be doing something. There's something like, that sometimes we don't realize, but even overwork, like overdoing, always doing something, always, have to be busy. That's another escape mechanism also that we don't want to deal with ourselves. And the pandemic brought us, right? There was a shock for the whole humanity because we had to stop, right? Didn't we? We did have to stop. And many people went crazy, right? We heard about couples divorced, families start having conflicts between parents and children, and so many different things, and even, conflict with ourselves because we have to stop. And we did not have other places to go, other things to do, and then we were forced to look at ourselves, at our lives. And many people changed their lives. Many people changed their career, again, divorced or moved, decide to change their lives because they realized that what they're doing wasn't good for them. But for us to have this encounter with our true self, we need to stop. And nowadays, we heard a lot about meditation, right? Mindfulness, meditation, mindfulness, and yoga, all those being nature, all those things that helps us. And Spiritism talks about a lot. John Evangelist talks about a lot of meditation. In being nature, she already, in many books I heard she's saying that being nature, connect with nature, just, be there. Live in the moment. So many authors now talking about being the moment, living the now, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I remember that was March 2020, right? When California entered to lockdown. I remember that. I remember it was like an evening and I heard the governor saying, tomorrow everything is closed. I was like, what? No school, nothing. I was like, oh my goodness. So, I'm going to talk California because that's where we are right now, right? But I'm sure everybody went through that. But like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So it's like we have no control over what's going to happen tomorrow. Although we want to control, although we want to know, but everything can change tomorrow. Because God's in control, not us. And who wants the control? Do you think it's our true self or our ego? Why does our ego want to control? Because our ego have the main job of our ego is trying to protect us. So our ego believes that it's going to protect us from whatever is going on, outside and even inside. So our ego has this controlling need. So when we try to control, that's not our true self. But when we're like surrender, it's like, God, I gave in, I cannot do anything, so I trust. And that's a work process for us to try to trust God and even ourselves, because we do have God inside ourselves, and that's our true selves. And we do have wisdom. We were there before we incarnate in the spiritual world with our mentors, planning this reincarnation. We were there. So we know unconsciousness what we have to do, what we should do. But what happens when we are in the experience? It's like what happens when a student is at school. They don't want to study, they don't want to do homework, they don't want to take tests because that's hard. It demands effort from us. And it is hard. So I don't want to deal with that now. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay when it breaks. Sometimes we do, and that's a matter of being humble and say, Jesus, I need a break. And he told us, right? Come to me who is tired and who are sick. Come to me and I will comfort you. He didn't say, I will take your problems away. He never said that, but he said, I will comfort you. So we do have that comfort that comes from Jesus, first of all, and God. So we do have that. But we're going to have to go through our turmoils or what we have to go through. But we're not alone. We do have help. And in here, Joanna, so she talks about that we have to be careful with our escape mechanisms because it can turn to addictions, right? Any type of addictions. Any type of addictions. We can be addicted to, again, food, or TV or work can become an alcoholic, because when we're working we don't have to think, right? Or you don't have to feel. It's more even, like she says here, consciousness is not a matter of intellectual. No. We don't need to be smart. So it would be unfair, right? So it means like people who are not smart, they're not conscious. No. It's a matter of understand ourselves. So even like read a lot or study a lot, it can be an escape mechanism. So we have to be careful with that. And so she says many things here, and most importantly, manage our conflicts. So we do need to manage our conflicts. And also she says our problems just carry the weight that we lend them. So many times we get stuck on the problems instead of seeing the solution. So it's hard for us to move if we don't see the light, right? And she also says, never give up to empty time, because it gets filled up with boredom, discomfort, and perturbation. So what does it mean, empty time? Even when we are like meditation, that's not empty time. So when, what I'm going to do, I don't have anything to do right now. Okay, so what can I do that's going to be good for me? Sometimes I need a nap. You know, sometimes I need rest. And I also can use that time to meditate or to do charity, good to others. Because always when you do good, you receive good as well. So always use our time positively towards ourselves and others. And I just want to read, to finish, the last questions of the Spirit's book. That's question 621. When Kardec asks, where is God's law written? And the Spirit's answered, in the conscience. So how can we decide, right? Again, going back to question 600, good from evil, right? God's law. So where is God's law? In our conscience. So how can we know if we're taking the right path or the wrong path? We need to connect with ourselves. We need to connect with our true self. Again, we're never alone. We do have help. But who is our first, most perfect model? The Spirit's book also answers that, Jesus. First of all, connect with God, Jesus, and ourselves to understand, again, the difference between good and evil, so we can make better choices. That's what I'd like to share with you this morning. Thank you.